This episode of the Oh No 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 podcast is sponsored by Dynamic Industrial Services, the rope access specialists. Every week we talk about the Rovers' latest attempts to climb the SPFL ladder, but sometimes even a ladder won't reach. DIS are specialists in working at height, offering maintenance, inspection, repair and more, right across Scotland. So if you need a rope access specialist and you want a premiership service, visit dynamicindustrialservices.co.uk to find out more.
And so it all comes down to this. The Rovers head up to Dingwall tomorrow for their 51st game of the season, and the stakes couldn't be higher. They may be trailing 2-1, but they will take the momentum from the end of the first leg to a county side who haven't kept a clean sheet since the 5th of December, 25 games ago. This is the Oh No 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 podcast. I am Duncan Cameron, and joining me for one last preview this season, I am delighted to have, I've got Blair Hopcroft first of all. Nice quiet Saturday for you, Blair?
Yeah, something like that. I cycled from Dunoon to be here today. Dunoon to Aberfeldy today. Aberfoyle even. But it's not like me to get a name wrong. But yeah, I'm knackered.
So a good job you didn't get that mixed up earlier on, at least.
Yeah, totally.
Could have extended your cycle somewhat. Well, we've also got Leslie Mabe on as well. Les, doesn't look like Oban in the background this time.
Oh, I'm in Taipei in Taiwan at the moment, but it's currently 2:24 in the morning. This week we had some very exciting Chinese military drills in the water surrounding the island. However, last time I was at Stocks Park, Dougie Imrie was in charge of the Morton side, so I'm quite comfortable being in the proximity of dangerous weapons and massive rockets.
And making what I think is his second appearance on the podcast, we've got Sandy Power. And well, first of all, congratulations are in order, Sandy. I mean, we welcomed a new Rovers fan into the world quite recently. How are things going?
Yeah, going really well. She's a great kid so far. Does keep us on our toes with all the baby things that she needs done. But no, she's the cutest wee button ever. So yeah, it's been a really lovely sort of just shy of a month now. So yeah, it's been very kind of busy time over the past few months with everything that's been coming up. But it's nice to finally have the little girl now. So yeah, enjoying it very much.
Fantastic. Now, it's just gone 7 o'clock on Saturday night as we record this. So the game kicks off in less than 15 hours. So I think we'll keep this episode a little bit shorter than we usually would and give folk at least half a chance to listen to it before the game tomorrow. So we'll kind of walk through the key incidents from Thursday night. But just to kick us off, Blair, what's your kind of overriding emotion going into tomorrow?
So I think it's a really funny one because I was kind of quite adamant I didn't want Ross County. They kind of gave me the fear, and they kind of lived up to exactly what I thought they were going to be on Thursday night. I must admit, there was a 10-minute spell between 71 and 81 on Thursday night where I thought it was over. I really did. I thought that was goose cooked. And then it changed. And I mean, if Partick Thistle have shown us anything, it's that, you know, it's not over until it's over. And I know they didn't actually go through, but I mean, they took us all the way. So yeah, I'm hopeful for tomorrow. I'm actually really looking forward to the day. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a really good day, actually, regardless of what happens. And that's, you know, as Ian Latto would call it, birthday care pish. But it's been a great season, and I just think it's such a nice way to end with 2,000 minions working their way up to Dingwall to just kind of, at the very least, to sign off the season on a high.
It's I was fulfilling my rent a quote obligations for BBC Sports Sound about half an hour ago, and the producer says to me, she said, "Are you optimistic for tomorrow?" And I said, "No, but I'm hopeful." And then I realised that they really mean the same thing, but I don't really know. I don't quite know what I meant by that, but like optimistic almost feels like a little bit too far. Like I don't know that I think we're odds on to get through or anything like that. But I'm very hopeful that basically, regardless of what happens, I'll still be kind of a real birthday care pish to kick us off. I'll still be very proud to be a Rovers supporter at the end of the game. Basically, regardless of what happens, and I'm very confident that it'll be everything we've come to expect. That you'll get the full effort and all that kind of stuff. But setting that aside, Leslie, do you think Ian Murray will have learnt a fair bit out of that first leg?
I'd like to think he will have. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one. I think you'd maybe said this in our group chat, Duncan, that if you look at the lineup we started with in the Ross County game, it didn't work, but 95% of us would have picked that lineup to start with. It wasn't like Kyle Tupper at 6 or a back three with Ross Millen as the right at the back three or anything daft like that. It was the lineup you would expect, and we ended up just being completely outplayed by Ross County for a good chunk of the game. But I mean, like Blair just said, goals change games, and it can be against the run of play. And we saw with Partick, you get a goal, and then we're the ones getting into the second leg with our tails up. So I'm it's kind of weird. I was trying to think how to articulate this. I don't think I would have been more confident if we'd won by a single goal or if we'd drawn, because we all know how quickly it can turn. And I mean, the one thing I will say about Ross County, so we saw with Dundee United this season that when Dundee United scored, they usually went on the win. They didn't concede. If they got one, they would then go bang, 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 3-4-5. We know Ross County will let goals in. I mean, clearly, if we just keep shelling balls at them, they're going to just swat them away. But we know that they're penetrable. So, we know we'll get chances, and if we can take them, hopefully we'll get back in. So I'd like to think that Ian Murray and the guys have had the chance, the 90 minutes to learn and can kick on from that. And that's probably why, as I say, confidence-wise, I don't think I'm any different to how I would have been if we'd been in a better position, which sounds weird when you think about it, but that's how it is.
I think it's fair though. I mean, Sandy, like Leslie's saying there, the dynamic is very, very similar to the last round, to the semi-final, where we were 2-0 up, and it looked like we could have gone on to get 3 or 4 against Thistle, and then they get that goal back, and suddenly it's all different. Do you think there's, I don't know, necessarily confidence to be taken, but from the way that Thistle approached the second leg, can we almost emulate that and kind of do what they did and really turn the second leg into a very different game?
I don't see any reason why not. Obviously, that's the benefit of the final also being over 2 legs. It is 180 minutes of football. It's not just the one game, so it does give us that little bit of breathing space for Murray to perhaps look on his team selection and some of the tactics they used in the first game and think about what he wants to alter. I think, obviously, we quite like to play some quite nice football, some passing football, and we never really got a chance on Thursday night because County were just so in our faces, pressed us really well, and of course we're big, strong, physically fit guys. So I think if we can sort of play our way into the game and in the second leg, perhaps we stand more of a chance. But they looked, although they weren't effective a lot of the time, Ross County's set pieces, they're the kind of team that can be really effective from those sorts of situations. So we do really need to be switched on for the whole of the 90 minutes, plus whatever if it goes to that.
Yeah, again, not to just constantly bang on about being on the radio half an hour ago, but there was a bit in that I kind of didn't really get the chance to refute. So I'm just going to do it now. I'm just going to use my own platform. But basically, yeah, exactly. Tom English, if you're listening. But the overriding point, was that basically both Tom English and Billy Dodds said that in the last kind of 20 minutes, the Rovers suddenly kind of found their belief almost. And it was like, they believed in themselves and that kind of changed it, which I don't think is true, basically. I don't think it was I don't think it was a lack of belief or anything like that at all. I think it was a combination of the way that Ian Murray set up, and I think, Leslie, you said it already, I think he set up wrongly, and I think it's entirely understandable how and why, and I think that basically everybody would have done the same thing. But fundamentally, I think he did set up wrongly. And also, Ross County were very, very good in a couple of specific ways. And the main one for me, because I think when you look at that Ross County side, with as much as I have, which is basically not at all, but knowing some of their players, guys like Simon Murray and Jan Danda, you think, they're going to be big and physical, and Jordan White's going to be there to rough you up. What I didn't see was the kind of intensity of the press, and that kind of really took me by surprise. And I think that was where it came from. I don't think the Rovers set out it's like, Jack Hamilton's playing now, we can play long to him. I think they were forced into rushing, and when they were rushing, it was a case of, at least I know Jack's there, and they were going long to him. But you learn from that, that's no longer a surprise or no longer something that we don't have 3 or 4 days to work on and work around. And I don't know what this will count for, but I don't know necessarily how much Don Cowie's going to have learned from that first leg. And you could argue that he won it and he doesn't necessarily need to. But I think Ian Murray will have learned a lot. And I think it's a very different dynamic now. And how that ends up playing out is, a dozen different ways it could go. But I am quite confident that you won't see the same pitfalls, certainly to the same degree, as we saw on Thursday night. So I'm hopeful in that sense.
You would hope so. I was going to say the point that everybody's kind of making about the Partick Thistle thing, it's like, if you watch those two games, they were very different from every Rovers Partick game that we'd had before. I mentioned it before in the previous podcast. It was like they ran out of legs, so they went to their plan B and it worked. And the thing that impressed me with Doolan was he recognised that worked and therefore just did it from the start in the second leg. And I hope Murray learns from that and tries to do it. I think the really important thing that gives me a little bit of hope, though, is I think you're right. Ross County were very good at doing what Ross County do. I didn't like some of the narrative that was going on in the media and stuff, that they were really good. I really didn't think they were very good at all. I thought they were very good at doing what they do. It reminded me a lot of the game against Livingston, actually, in the Scottish. It was a very, very similar game, very similar tactic. They were just much better at it than what Livingston were. But the difference was Livingston scored goals against us doing that. But Ross County didn't. Like, Ross County basically got a penalty and scored. We conceded from a corner. Like, well, yeah, it was, do you know what I mean? It was another day. Like, that's what happens. But it gives me a bit of hope that as good as they were, particularly in the first half at doing that, we managed it. Like, we actually contained it and we did okay. Like, it was a bit harem-scarum at times. There was a couple of, like, half-decent chances. But it was a performance that actually kind of gave me a little bit more hope than the scoreline did.
I mean, one thing I'd add as well with that is, I think the thing that gave me a bit of belief is the manner in which our goal came in. I don't want to kind of jump all over the place and knacker the narrative, but, like, Ali Adams' goal was a freak goal against us. Partick's goal was a freak goal against us. Our goal was a bit of quality from quality players. And you look at that and you think, there's quality there, and we can match them for quality when it comes together.
That's it. I think, as you just said, Blair, Ross County, they were good at doing what they do. I don't think we really did what we do until kind of later on. And I think it's where County don't want us to be. You know, they're like an elephant with a mouse. Like they don't want you under their feet and in their space. And I actually think they're due a lot of credit for like basically preventing us from doing that for the first 70 odd minutes on Thursday night, because that's how we would have wanted to play. And I think the thing is, it's Kyle Turner dropping out is probably the biggest single factor there, and it's just hard luck that that's the way that that's went. But it will be very interesting to see how that works, and then how County set up, and to what extent they go for it versus, you know, kind of
consolidate.
Aye, because they're very fragile.
Yeah.
You know, and they're a very, I don't know if this is necessarily the right term, but they're a very, like, schizophrenic team in as much as their results, some of their results are outstanding. And some of the, like, they beat Rangers, and they didn't beat Rangers with, like, 2 counter-attacks. You know, they scored goals in that game. They had other chances. They were excellent. They beat Hearts relatively recently. They beat Hibs after the split. But equally, they get tanked 5-1 by Motherwell after the split. They lost to Livingston, who'd already been relegated. You know, they have the capacity to be very good and the capacity to be very bad. And that's a very difficult thing to shake when you are that team. And that's where, obviously, like, the goal is huge and the momentum is huge, and they will be relatively confident because they are good at home, and that's a thing that they can kind of pin their hopes on. But as I said in the intro, not kept a clean sheet since the 5th of December. You know, basically, as I say, we've played 50 games so far this season, and their last clean sheet was 25 games ago. So it's... You don't have to go far to start kind of poking holes in any kind of mentality that they might have. And I say it all the time, but like an early goal in this game could be absolutely huge. But I tell you what, let's come back around to that, because I think we're going to finish on a very, very optimistic note. I'm going to be just like 6-0 Rovers by the time we're finished. But let's just swing back around before I get carried away. So I think to be honest, we've probably covered the kind of first half, really, because I think that really was a case of County started very, very well, and then almost the longer it went on, it seemed like actually, as you say, Blair, like they didn't really create an awful lot at all. They kind of looked very good middle to front, and then just had really nothing up front at all. When we get into the second half, and particularly Aidan Connolly had that unbelievably close, which I couldn't believe that didn't go in. At that point, did you think maybe County's belief was starting to go? And you'll see where this line of questioning is going. Was that then fundamentally rescued by the penalty decision?
Yes. Yes to all of that. It wasn't just that. There was the ladle of flat as well.
Yeah.
Which was the moment you were like, by the way, we can get at them. Like, I forgot Ross Laidlaw did that. And then the penalty was just such a sucker punch. And it was the fact that the referee didn't give it, and it kind of went on, and then the ball went out of play. And of course, we didn't have the screen, so you're just waiting, and you're like, he's checking VAR. Like, it had to be. And to be fair, I mean, let's call a spade a spade. It was a penalty. It was, you can't argue it. But it just... And then when the ball hit the post, we all went, damn it. There was just that little moment of maybe. And then when they scored, you kind of thought, it's going to be tough now. And for it to come the way that it did as well, like with the penalty, it just felt... it felt really unfair. It felt like we dealt with everything they could throw at us, and we dealt with it really well. And then they just got a half, not even a chance. They just a freak bit of luck, and yeah, we were 1-0 down and up against it.
I'm gonna limit our discussion of VAR to like 2 minutes if I can, because we'll get carried away if we don't. But
it is what it is.
I think that was a really good encapsulation of how it's one of the changes they made recently that favours the kind of the favourites in a game almost. Like, if you're going to go out and beat a team from the division above or upset somebody in a cup, you need things like getting away with the odd blocked shot or...
Yeah, and it's
exactly. And it's things like 5 subs as well, and this is a totally other thing, but it basically just favours teams with bigger budgets and all this kind of stuff, and it makes it harder to upset the odds effectively. But I mean, fundamentally, it's categorically that's a penalty kick. Like it is. I thought that at the time, and weirdly, I actually thought the referee thought that at the time, just from his body language. I mean, he points for the corner, categorically gives the corner, but I just thought he knows that's a penalty. Like he's almost made the easy decision because it's less of a turmoil if he gives the penalty and then gets told to overturn it than if he gives the corner and they tell. I don't know, that's weird and kind of conspiratorial and doesn't even really make sense, but that was just the feeling I got. It just looked true, straight away.
It felt like that the whole game, though. It was like he just didn't call anything. And it felt for me there was a marked difference in the way that when we watch games, most of the referees we watch are absolutely abject. And they call everything or they don't call everything, and they're usually, to be fair to them, they're usually pretty consistent. They either call everything or they call nothing. But for me, Beaton is meant to be one of the best in the country, and it just felt to me like he thought, I didn't need to call it because the telly will sort it. Like, didn't worry about it. And there's just that little bit of kind of passing the buck. I didn't like it.
Nah, I really didn't like it.
It took a very long time to look at that. When I looked at both the Race TV and the Sky Sports highlights, it seemed fairly obvious that it was a penalty. Because we were sitting there, or maybe it's just because it was a decision against us, but it did feel like he took a long time. And he might be just being thorough, but I don't know why he took so long to what seemed such an obvious thing. But that's when I heard it was going to VAR, that is always the worry that there is something clear and obvious there that they're going to have to check. So my heart did sink there and got a wee bit of hope when Danda hit the post, but then didn't quite hit it at the right angle, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's one of these. If we were playing in the 60s with the old like squared off goalposts, like the Fife Free Press would have enjoyed, that would have been absolutely grand. Anywhere. It would have been fine. Final point on John Bean. He's 15 yards away and he's looking straight at that. Now that is a clear and obvious error, but then I think we need to go back to asking questions to the referees. Frankly, he's getting that wrong. But anyway. Right, we'll have no more VAR talk. See, once we've got promoted and we have to deal with it for a full season, we can have we'll do a whole episode about it in pre-season.
So Thursday.
Hi. So that obviously then that gives County the lead. The second goal, so it's obviously Jan Danda scores that. The second one does come from the set piece, from the corner kick, and they did have a bit of pressure. But I think it's more about the delivery than it is about the finish. Leslie, how impressed were you with Jan Danda on Thursday night?
He's clearly a very good player, and he's clearly a player that is going to be going on to better things next season. He's one of these players that can always give you that bit of quality with that delivery or something like that, and so improved, not just with the penalty, but also with the delivery from the set piece. And the weird thing was, I think I'd seen some Ross County fans on social media saying, finally it was Malky Mackay, and he used him incorrectly for 18 months before. I mean, I don't know how true that is, but it wouldn't surprise me. You know, a guy who can deliver things like that is always going to be a problem. And yeah, I think there was a couple of moments in the first half, and Scott came raging into our group chat like, "No more! Do not give Danda any more space in the ball." I mean, so I think there is a point there, and I don't want to do the penalty to death, but there's a few times this season we've conceded that kind of penalty where a shot's come in and it's hit Ewan Murray's arm. It's not Ewan Murray's fault. It's just the rules of the game. It's rotten luck, but it is also a penalty. One of the best ways round that is don't let them get shots away in the first place. Having said that, as I say, you've got a real class player there. The only thing I can hope for the second leg is his mind starts to wander to next season and the thoughts of not getting injured or getting himself crocked over the summer. Having said that, though, there are other quality players there. There's guys there that can hurt you. There's Simon Murray, there's Jordan White. We know the dangers of getting overly fixated on one point of danger in an opposition team. So he's one part of the puzzle, but he's not the only thing that can harm us.
He is 3/4 of it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think that must be the first time I've seen him in the flesh, and I was really impressed. And I was hoping he would be half-arsing it and just like, I'm out here, like forget this. And he'd apparently was limping at the end of their last game, but instead it looked almost like he was like, actually, this doesn't really have any stakes for me, so I'm quite kind of carefree. And maybe he plays like that every week anyway, and so I've literally got no idea. But he just did seem very like kind of free roll, popping up everywhere. I did keep getting confused with the right back, to be fair. So when I'm saying he was popping up everywhere, there is a chance that was just two guys that I was watching. But
he is he's doing what we can now lovingly refer to as an Inverness Cali Thistle, isn't he? He's moving from the Highlands to the Central Belt.
Inverness
I'm
Celtic.
going to say the really annoying thing actually about Dan does, if you think about it, the way you just described it, Duncan, what he did was exactly what Kyle Turner's been doing for us for the last few games. Kyle Turner, who ironically is actually registered to Czechs Notes Ross County and hence couldn't play for us. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but a real bit of quality there.
There was a point in the second half where Danda takes the ball and he runs into the corner and somebody follows, I can't even remember who it was, somebody follows him in, I think it was maybe Ross Matthews, and Danda just waits for him and then just flicks it off his legs for a corner and trots away. And I was just like, it's just, when you get a player he's just better than the people around him.
That's what it was. I do think that on watching the highlights, I hadn't noticed this. Watching the highlights, when Sean Byrne gets the ball to pass to Ross Matthews, it's actually Danda who's closest to him. And Danda obviously thinks, I've got a chance possibly to break away here. Steps out a wee bit, and Sean Byrne just zips it into Matthews. So, kind of, his confidence perhaps even worked against him. But he's got that confidence, that air of, I can do lots of harm. I've got absolute confidence in myself. You can see that in him, the way he kind of holds himself. He is a fantastic player by the looks of things. It is probably definitely their biggest threat. I felt that the spaces that were created, the Ross County players used a lot of the width of the pitch, and they played at a very fast pace. And I don't think we were used to that for a lot of the teams that we come up against. So I think it was a very tiring game for Raith Rovers on Thursday night. And the fortunate thing is, like you're saying, with Ross County being a very inconsistent, kind of near the bottom of the table Premiership side, we're a second of the Championship side who's had a fantastic season, only really losing the chance to actually win the league in the very last few weeks. And we did get that goal back, and we do have that confidence this year that whether it's over 97 minutes as it was a few times, that we can just push that a little bit further and get the win. So that's why I wasn't disheartened by losing the game on Thursday night. I realise, having watched Ross County play, it's going to be a really, really tricky game, but we're not out of it yet. I think we just need a wee bit of rub of the green. I mentioned that on the group chat. But it's one game now. It's like a cup final. Anything can happen. So I am hopeful, as you are, Duncan, for Sunday, for tomorrow.
I think that, like the goal especially, but then the last 20 minutes, you see very clearly where the opportunity is, like where the gaps are and how County can be got at. You're right. I was quite impressed. I love a wing back, and I was really impressed the way they were using their wing backs in that game. And I think the big sort of, I don't know, failing, if you want to call it that, in the first half was we didn't really ask enough questions of the back three that they've got. The boy Leake get booked early doors and then had to pull down Jack Hamilton at another point, managed to hurt himself in the process. You think like that's, they don't really want that. They don't really want to be playing that, and they maybe got away with it a bit kind of too long. And Nightingale in particular was stepping out of that back three kind of into the midfield, and we never really got them turned around. But then as the game goes on and we get into that later phase, the goal is a perfect example of what they don't want to be doing. Because as you say, Sandy, Jan Dander's kind of out on that left-hand side and normally supposed to be watching Ross Matthews, and he's just not. And you're right, it's because he's thinking, there's a good chance we win this ball back and I'm off. But the thing for me is Sean Byrne has all the space in the world as well. Like, they've totally, in that little bit of movement, completely lost the ball, the man with the ball, and the runner. Like, that's where your opportunity is. That's absolutely what we can do. And I think that's got to be the key, really, is it's trying to play the game in their half as much as possible. And that's obviously easier said than done, but I think that was where we kind of lost out primarily on Thursday night, which I think it came from them pressing from the front, and it totally turned us upside down. But we've kind of got that knowledge now. So obviously we're kind of touch on the goal. Blair, so you give me any thoughts you want on that goal, but just also that whole kind of period. And I'm thinking particularly of Josh Mullen's chance and then Dylan Corr's header as well in that final period.
Yeah, it was, for me, the game did turn on the substitutions. I thought they were definitely the right substitutions to make when he made them. I really felt for Josh Mullen. I do think, a player who's played in the last 5 or 6 weeks probably scores that chance. It's one of them, he'll watch that back and he'll kick himself, because it was a great opportunity and he had more time. That he didn't need to snatch at it quite as quickly as he did. Dylan Corr's header, again, a good ball into the box and a decent header. I don't think Dylan's the most commanding in the air. He's decent, and he'll get a head on the ball, but to get up and direct a header like that is almost a different skill in itself, and you saw that in the second goal that they scored. A player who's clearly very, very good at that. You go back to your Mark Campbells and Marvin Andrews and those kind of guys that, like, it was bread and butter for them. It was what they did. But I personally thought Dylan Easton was outstanding when he came on. He changed it completely, because for me, he was the one that changed the style of play. He's a ball carrier. We've talked about it all season. He's the kind of guy who gets a ball, and rather than making a pass and making a run, he'll just carry the ball 10, 15, 20 yards further on. And it can really change the kind of dynamic of the game. And it really did. He was properly... He's starting to kind of look like the Dylan Easton that we had in the first half of the season. And it is that thing for me that, again, that passing and moving and that you're talking about, the space that Sean Byrne has, probably comes from the fact that they're a bit kind of 6s and 7s, because every time the ball drops, you've got Stanton, you've got Vaughan, you've got Vaughan was off, you've got Easton, you've got Mullen picking up the ball as well out wide, looking across the ball in. The shape had changed completely, the kind of dynamic of the team had changed. But I mean, what a goal. Like, you watch, and you talked about it earlier on, sometimes to beat the Premier League team, you need that bit of luck. You need that, half chance that isn't really a chance, but it goes in. I think back to the one that John Baird scored against Livy, that sort of overhead kick thing. I'm not entirely sure how much he knew about it. It's one of them, it's coming at you, you take your opportunity when it comes. But that, to me, showed why we're in this tie. Like, we picked them apart and it worked. Great ball for Sean Byrne, great ball for Ross Matthews. And just, it's Sam Stanton doing what Sam Stanton does. A great finish.
Yeah, 100%. And it's again, Sam Stanton turning up when it matters. I think that's, I haven't checked this, I never do. But I think is that all of his goals have been, it feels like they've all been in the dying stages of very important games, but I think they've all been worth, points and stuff to us. They've all been important goals. And it's another one to add to that list. Leslie, give me any thoughts you've got on the kind of final stages there, and then into tomorrow. Any changes you'd like to see in terms of the lineup or in terms of the approach, please?
Well, the first thing I would say is I would just kind of strongly agree with what Blair said about Easton coming on and the fact he just causes havoc, because you have to double up on him. And the thing is that if he doesn't beat his guy first time, he's not going to go and hide. He's going to keep showing for the ball. He's going to keep asking for the ball. He's going to keep doing it again and again. And it does your box, and when you're watching it, it doesn't work until the one time it does. And he doesn't hide, he doesn't go away, and he just keeps doing it, and he will do it. And if you're opposition defenders, you have to deal with that. You're like, oh shit, because, as I say, he only has to get it right once. He's one of those players who you want him on the pitch because he's got the quality to do something magical. It might only happen once, but it was something that will either be a goal or it will result in a goal. So, I think I'm looking ahead to the game tomorrow. If Easton is fit, he has to start. I'd actually argue, even if he's not fully fit, even if we can only get an hour out of him, I'd have him on from the start. I'd also be tempted to have Mullen on from the start. Again, I'm not sure how fit he is. I'd be tempted to give Connolly a wee rest and have Connolly coming off the bench if we need him, and start with Mullen. Just a word on Dylan Corr as well. I thought Dylan Corr was exceptional. I thought I don't think either of the goals were really his fault.
No.
It was a huge occasion. We know he's carrying an injury, and played just as well as Keith Watson would have. As well as the header that went over, he also was very close in the first half as well. There's a ball that came in, he just didn't quite manage to get himself in the right place. But you think this is a guy that's played a handful of senior games, and if we can keep him on for next season, once he gets one or two goals in these kind of situations, you can see him just kicking on. So just a word for Dylan Corr. And looking ahead, I would say, I'd like to see Easton and Mullen in from the start if they are fit, and just see what we can get out of them.
Yeah, I'm on the same page, and with apologies to Dylan Easton's chiropractor, I'm not clearing. He's in the start lineup for me. Exactly. I think just what he gives you is what we need, quite frankly. I would be just quite simply just going back to how we played against Thistle, but with Dylan Easton instead of Kyle Turner, and just asking everybody to do the same jobs they were doing then. So Vaughan's your 9, Stanton's your 10. Mm-hmm. Easton can roam wherever he wants. That's absolutely fine. There is space behind these county wing backs. 3 centre-halves is always a little bit awkward when there's movement in front of you. There's space there for good football players to go and interlink and really cause bother. Just one huge thing I want to say with that is in no way a criticism of Jack Hamilton. I really felt for Jack Hamilton on Thursday night, because I thought he was very much he was like a symptom of what had gone wrong, not the cause of what had gone wrong. Like, he was asked to do a thankless task. I thought he got very little assistance for the referee in trying to do it, and these balls that are being knocked up to him, the odds are so against him to do anything with that, and it's not. I don't. You can tell football players all you want, don't put it long. But if they know there's a guy who's 6'3" further up the park, they're gonna do it if they're under pressure. And I just think that it didn't work. Not his fault, but it didn't work. And I think that's for me what needs to kind of revert. But he's a brilliant option to have coming off the bench, either because you've got yourself into the lead, and he's a brilliant player in the final third, and he's really good defensively, or if you're chasing the game. He's a brilliant player. Come on. Him and Zach Rudden and Scott McGill and everybody else as well.
Murray ball.
Exactly. Which, I mean, listen, if ever there was an appropriate occasion for it, and there's been loads of inappropriate occasions for it, and we've seen it anyway, this is one thing. Tomorrow is either going to be like glorious or glorious failure. There's no in between with Ian Murray. There's not, like, it will go out like the charge of the Light Brigade. Like, there will just be chaos. And it's actually one of these things where there's an incredibly infinitesimally small part of me that kind of wants to see what would happen if, like, we concede twice in the first 10 minutes, just to see how early it just, like, break glass for Murray ball, to see what would happen. But obviously we won't see that.
I want to put six words out. Kevin Dabrowski, 97th minute, headed goal. That's 7 words.
I think that's like the Murray ball equivalent of putting your centre half up front. It's like putting Andy McNeil on to go in goal and putting Kevin Dabrowski up front because he's bigger. You don't have any centre halves you can use. Sandy, for you, please, anything in particular you are crying out for that you'd like to see tomorrow?
I would like to see Dylan Easton start. Much like Leslie, he just brings that little bit of magic. For that very same reason, I'd probably stick with Vaughan in the team. Because he can have his off days, but he'll just come up with something that just completely flips the game on its head. I would like to see Vaughan and Stanton play a little bit more centrally at times. I feel they're more effective when they kind of were moved in a little bit towards the end of the game. It might be an opportunity again to use Callum Smith. I feel like he's the sort of guy that can stretch a defence. We've seen it a few times this season with breakaways. He's been quite composed in those situations, so you might want to start him. I think Connolly tried his little socks off in the game. They all do. They always do. But I think he's a fantastic impact sub if we need to bring him on. I would maybe start Easton over him and then bring Connolly on later on if we need to. And like you're saying, that's the fantastic thing about this season is we do have more depth and quality in the squad that we can bring on. You've got Scott McGill who does a fantastic job when he comes on. And you do have, if you play Smith, you can bring on Hamilton. If you can interchange between Vaughan, when you've got Turner, you can bring Turner in, play in the middle. So we do have, we are kind of spoilt, particularly in midfield. I would also just second the praise of Dylan Corr. I think a lot of our young players, when called upon this season, like say your Callum Hannas, Adam Massons, they have been good. They have stepped up when they needed to. Obviously, when you've got very experienced players like Watson, and obviously Murray's got a lot of trust in Brown to play at centre half as well. That's maybe a more sensible option at times. But I do think that Corr, perhaps, Murray has seen him progress in training, and he thinks he's at that level now. And certainly, I watched, I was in the South Stand when we were playing in the first half. Corr looked very composed, and I was very impressed. So I'm quite optimistic. I'd like to see, if we do keep him on next season, how much game time he gets and how he kicks on from there. Because I'd like to see more of him, essentially. I would like to see how he develops as a player.
Yeah. Definitely. He's had hard luck with these injuries this season. I guess he's, as far as I'm concerned, certainly more than that. Like, he's proven he's worth another shot at championship level anyway. Right, Blair, I said we would do a tight half hour, and we're approaching the 45-minute mark. So even short episodes, yeah, we've done it in our own usual style. But final word from you on tomorrow's game, and we'll get wrapped up, please.
Yeah, I'm not going to do predictions. I'm not going to predict a team lineup. I honestly don't care. I don't care who plays. I just want us to enjoy the occasion. I think it's massive how far this club has come. That video they put out through the week with look how far we've come, from the last game of last season to now, like, it's been epic. It has been such a good season, and it's such a good group of guys as well. And do you know what? It's one of the things where the team talk writes itself. It's like it's now or never. Do you know what I mean? It's go out there and do it, because there's no second bite at this. You either go out and you beat County by 2 goals, or take it to extra time and penalties, or you're playing in the Championship next season. And some of you won't be playing for the club as a result of that. Do you know what I mean? It's nuts and bolts stuff. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to the game, to the occasion, and I'm looking forward to stuffing them, to be honest with you, and then celebrating, and then going to my work on the Monday, which is crap. But yeah, nervous. I'm not going to lie, I am nervous, but it's just such a big opportunity. It really is. I keep saying it, but it's massive. Like Murray says it as well. We're so far ahead of where we should be. Is probably the best way to put it. You never saw us being here this point this season. Playing for playoffs was the goal. Do you know what I mean? Winning them was a pipe dream probably, but now it's in our hands.
Absolutely, I think that's a very good note to end on. So I think it's statistically likely. I think by the time that this episode goes out, you'll all be in your beds. So you will be listening to this. You'll already have the yellow on and on Beyond the Road to Dingwall. So safe travels if you are in that contingent, as a lot of us will be too. There will be a heavy kind of podcast representation. Again, just speaks to the kind of enormity of the occasion as far as this football club's concerned, that even just within our little group, Scott's flown back from Holland. It's also his dad's birthday, but I think, to be fair, like, we'll not ask him to commit to the main driver on that. Carol had to throw in an emergency holiday to come back from Barcelona, because quite simply just for the game. Michael Watson's driven up tonight from Reading in a winner for this game. Like, absolutely. And that's just replicated across the board, across the support. Yeah. There's so many people who'll be in Dingwall tomorrow who've kind of dropped everything to make sure that they're there. And yeah, I absolutely just can't wait for it. So I'm driving up tomorrow morning as well, and the number of buses and everything has been absolutely brilliant under tricky bus circumstances. So
very tricky.
Yeah, as I've said to everybody that I've spoken to about this game this week, we will see you all in the centre circle at full time, and we'll have a bit of a celebratory dance. So for the last time for a preview this season, thank you for listening. We will be back regardless of the result at some point. I imagine the particular result will dictate how long you have to wait for that, and how long we are prepared to talk about it. I suspect we could set records if this goes in our favour. But once again, as I say, thank you very much. We will see you in Dingwall tomorrow, and we will be back to talk about it again. Thank you, and goodbye.
Rovers.